All right, AP Psych. This begins our next unit, Unit 5, Memory and Intelligence. First presentation we're working with is pretty simple. Just different types of memory, different inputs, formats. Easiest way to kind of think of this, though, that your memory is a computer because your brain works very similar to a computer in the way it stores files. So that might be a little simpler to kind of think of your brain as the computer, make it simple for you. But when we look at memory, memory itself is just the persistence of learning over time through storage and retrieval. So basically, learning turns into memory when it's stored and you use it again. So there is a memory component to learning. The argument at school, you probably do a little more testing of the memory than the learning, but memory and learning are linked. And then memory is just, can you retrieve it? Can you talk about what you've learned? Can you use it at a later date? So types of memory, we have three basic types or stores. First one is sensory memory. Second is short-term memory, or working memory as we'll call it for most of this unit. And then long-term memory. Basically, when you look, as you go down this list, these memory stores become pretty permanent. Like if you get some into long-term memory, while it may take you a long time to get that stuff out, it's still there. And some psychologists actually argue once it goes into long-term memory, it's there forever. It may take you a long time to get it out, like as you get older because you have more files, but the idea is it's still there. So sensory memory, this is the immediate initial recording of all of our sensory information, the smells, the sights, the sounds, the feels in your environment. This is only going to be recorded for probably every second. It's only going to be stored for a millisecond. And then basically anything you pay attention to in your sensory memory will take it from sensory to short-term or working. So just for a second, a lot of it doesn't get processed. Whatever we choose to pay attention is going to be the big key with memory. So to take something from sensory memory into short-term, it takes attention. You have to pay attention to it. And then our two basic types of sensory memory, iconic is going to be our pictures and images, and then our echoic is going to be the sounds. These are your most widely used sensory memory because these are the senses we use the most or we rely on the most. So that's why it would be there. But again, like basically what happens is your sensory memory, I think it's like 10,000 bits of info per second. But of those 10,000 bits, you're only going to be able to pay attention to a little. So about 10% of that from sensory memory will go into short-term memory. But the attention part is the key. Short-term / working memory. We're going to call it working memory for the most part the rest of the unit, but these two terms are interchangeable. So memory, this is going to be stuff that holds a few items briefly. So like when you cram for a test, you're really stretching the limits of this. So it's going to be 7 digits plus or minus 2. So your range of sensory memory for your average person is 5 to 9 digits or 5 to 9 bits of information. Info will be stored into long-term or forgotten. So here we had attention taking it from sensory to short-term. So practice or rehearsal will take it from short-term or working memory into long-term memory. And so why we call this also working memory is because of our current understanding of memory. Long-term memory is within the deep recesses of the brain and does not have access to the parts that you can actually talk, write about, explain it. So when you're pulling a long-term memory or when you would want to share a long-term memory or use a long-term memory, you take it from the long-term memory storehouses and then put it back into your working memory. And so this is so you can use it. So like if you use the spacing effect and space out your studying, a lot of the info from that test are going to be from long-term back into working. If you're cramming, you're trying to stretch the extent or the capacity of your short-term memory, and you're not really getting a whole lot of bang for your buck here or juice from the squeeze kind of thing because you can only stretch it so long. And then our long-term memory, as long as we do not know the limits of it, Like if you wanted to look it up, you could look up the world record for digits past the decimal point in pi. It's up to the 1,000 digits, maybe. I think it might be up into the 10,000 digits. But basically, they have so much practice and so much memorization, so much rehearsal that they have stored it. Now, every 5 or so years, that number increases. So we don't know the limits of this. We know the more stuff you have in there, it can experience decay and fade over time. But if you continue to practice these long-term memories and recite these long-term memories or relive these long-term memories, they're going to be pretty relatively permanent. There are multiple forms and formats of long-term memory, so this is where memory can get a little complicated. Now here's going to be the types. So implicit, these are usually habits, muscle memory. It's hard to describe them, but you can do them very easily. So if you play a sport, you probably have that muscle memory already ingrained, and some of the even fundamentals of the sport may be hard to describe, but you can do them automatically. That's your implicit. And this is going to be processed by the cerebellum. Excuse me, remember the cerebellum is in the hindbrain. We don't have a whole lot of control over the hindbrain, so that's why your implicit, the memories that you can just do instead of talk about, are going to be processed by the cerebellum and stored as implicit memories. Explicit memories, these are the memories you can actively recall, recite, and talk about, so they're declarative also. These are going to be processed by the hippocampus, which is in the limbic system and has connections to your cerebral cortex and the forebrain. So that's why our working memory is going to be usually stored within the hippocampus or processed by the hippocampus. And that's why so it can easily go back and forth between long-term and the working. Flashbulb, this is usually what we call a vivid memory. There's not a whole lot of practice with it. There's not a whole lot of practice experience. Usually once is the only one experience is all it takes to go to a flashbulb. It's usually very negative, very traumatic. Car wrecks, a lot of your PTSD sufferers will suffer from a flashbulb memory that they cannot forget. And so this is going to be the 9/11 memories, which is probably a little too old for you, but PTSD sufferers, car wrecks, victims of any type of assault, that memory is so traumatic that it clearly ingrains into your brain, and now you know to avoid that situation. Flashbulb memory is probably one of our key adaptive memories that we developed throughout human development, human evolution, and that's so we try to avoid that experience again. Now, when we look at the formats, each one of these can have different types of formats. So these would be the storehouses. I would almost look at it as like the drives on your computer where you can store stuff, where you can save it. So you may have these drives, you may have these folders, but there may be different formats into each, say, type of memory, the folder or the storehouse itself. So episodic memories, these are memories that are, it's almost like a TV show. You can see them play out within your mind's eye. These are usually going to be paired with your explicit, and if it's traumatic, your flashbulb. You're not going to have a whole lot of implicit memories that are episodic. So we look at graduation, prom, sporting events, big events in your life, favorite birthday, memories of your favorite friends, memories of an old house. Those would be episodic. Semantic, this is the type of memory that we're scoring and tracking in school. So this is your general knowledge, your facts, your meaning. So your school learning. So we look at school knowledge or Jeopardy knowledge. These are just the random facts. And then you have your procedural, and procedural is usually going to be implicit, but it can be explicit too. Usually what happens, procedural memories, we have so much practice experience with them that they start as here, but then they end up being stored here. So this is just basically skills that you've learned over the years. Like your walking gait or rhythm is a procedural memory. And so we look at how to ride a bike, tie your shoes. A lot of that stuff is going to be done automatically, so those most of these are going to be implicit. These are going to be explicit, and then your episodic are going to be your explicit or your flashbulb. And then Monday, when we come back, we'll start to give you examples from your life of these different formats and types of memory.